We will be sending this recording out to everybody along with the slide deck. So please be on the lookout for that. We'll be sending an email after the webinar. As always on our webinars, Q&A is going to be at the end. So please chat your questions in throughout the webinar and we will hopefully get to them at the end. So with that being said, you're here to learn about the new rates. So I'm going to pass it to Erin to start us off.
Thanks, Tracy. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Erin, and like Tracy mentioned, I'm the Senior Utility Rate Consultant with Energy Toolbase. The purpose of today's webinar is to address the changes PG&E's commercial customers will be faced with next month as they are transitioned to one of the newly implemented B rates. We will go over the timeline and transition process, how long those qualified for grandfathering are protected, new rate options being implemented, and a side-by-side rate comparison in which our Western Regional Sales Manager, Matt, will show just how impactful these changes are within solar proposals. All right, let's go ahead and jump right in. Back in November of 2019, PG&E rolled out new rates referred to as B rates as a result of the utility's 2017-2019 general rate case. This was one of the most notable general rate case cycles for the California investor-owned utilities due to the significant changes in rate structure it included. When initially released in 2019, the B rates were available on a voluntary opt-in basis to existing PG&E customers. During this voluntary period, however, new customers were automatically placed under one of the new rates without an option to switch to what we now refer to as legacy rate options. The transition of existing customers to the B rates was originally planned to start last November, but ended up being postponed until March of this year. The transition will begin with customers that already have an interval meter and at least 12 months of hourly usage data available. This means that even customers currently serviced under a non-time of use rate option, such as A1 or A10, are subject to be transitioned starting next month. Those included within next month's transition will see the change in rate starting with their March 2021 billing cycle, which will differ per customer. After the initial wave occurs, the process will continue in November and each November thereafter until all customers have been transitioned. Although eventually all customers will be served under one of the B rates, customers that qualified for grandfathering are exempt from the initial transition. Unfortunately, the time frame to qualify has long passed, but customers that submitted their interconnection applications in 2017 were qualified. For customers that did not qualify, or for customers that did qualify, it is important to note that grandfathering protection only includes a legacy rates time of use periods. Customers are still subject to any other changes that occur, such as changes to the included charges themselves. The protection period is 10 years from when a system received its permission to operate, but in no event will the benefit extend beyond July 31st, 2027 or December 31st, 2027 for public schools. All right, now we'll start digging into the rates themselves. I'm sure that many of you are aware that the biggest or most impactful change that comes with the B rates is the shift of the on-peak time of use period. Under legacy rate options such as A10 or E19, the on-peak period is from noon to 6 p.m. Now, under all B rates, the on-peak period will be from 4 to 9 p.m. In addition to the on-peak period being much later in the day, it is now 7 days a week year-round. Previously, the on-peak period was only Monday through Friday during the summer season. Another noteworthy change is the definition of seasons. B rates include a 4-month summer season consisting of June, July, August, and September. This is 2 months shorter than the May through October summer season of legacy rate options. Expanding on the time of use periods, in addition to the change in on-peak hours, customers will now be subject to a super off-peak period from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day during the months of March, April, and May. During this period, energy will be at its cheapest. This also means that excess energy produced by a PV system during this period will be credited at the lowest rate. Lastly, it's important to note that the hours associated with PG&E's peak day pricing program will also be changing. Currently, the hours associated with event days are from 2 to 6 p.m., but beginning next month, the hours will be from 5 to 8 p.m. Event days can be called any day of the year, including holidays. Once the change in hours occurs, the PDP program will no longer be offered to customers under a legacy rate option. This means that solar customers looking to participate in the program will need to elect service under one of the B rate options, grandfathered or not. Also, existing customers who opted into a B rate during the voluntary period of November 2019 through the end of this month will be automatically unenrolled from the PDP program and must re-enroll to participate. When it comes to the rate name changes, the transition is pretty straightforward. Legacy rate names will be replaced with a B. For example, customers currently served under rate A1 will instead see B1 beginning with next month's bill. Same goes for rates A6, A10, E19, and E20. There are, however, new options available within some of the B rates. Small general service rate B1 includes an ST option. Rate B1 ST is a pilot program with a cap of 15,000 participants. This rate option is available to storage customers who have a maximum demand of 75 kilowatts or less, or usage in excess of 150,000 kilowatt hours per year, a minimum energy storage capacity equal to the greater of either 4.8 kilowatt hours or at least 0.05% of the customer's annual usage for the previous 12 months. If the customer has usage history less than 12 months or the customer has no usage history, the battery capacity must be greater or equal to 4.8 kilowatt hours. Unlike the standard B1 rate, this rate option includes a demand charge assessed during the combined on-peak and part-peak periods of 2 to 11 p.m. In addition, there is a part-peak energy charge assessed during the winter season. The winter part-peak period is every day during the months of October through May within the hours of 2 to 4 p.m. and 9 to 11 p.m. When looking at the snippet of PG&E's January 1st, 2021 tariff sheet, you'll see that the on-peak energy charges of rate B1 ST are roughly 20% higher than those of the standard B1 rate, and that the part-peak and off-peak energy charges are quite a bit lower. The other image on this slide shows the time of use period price differential for rate B1 ST. This is one of the factors considered when determining whether or not a rate is considered advantageous for storage. Those of you that are current ETB users will notice that B1 ST is not currently available in our rate database. This is due to limitations of our current platform's infrastructure. We are very excited, though, that within the coming months, our platform will be undergoing an extensive upgrade that will allow us to effortlessly model more complex rate structures such as this one. Moving on to the medium and large commercial, rates B19 and B20 include a new rate alternative titled Option S. Similar to B1 ST, this option is available only to storage customers. To qualify, customers must have a storage system with a rated capacity in watts, which is at least 10% of the customer's peak demand over the previous 12 months. The usage of the customer over the previous 12 months will be determined by the max demand, and the storage rated capacity will be determined by the PTO agreement. There is a minimum of 30 days of usage history required to evaluate eligibility. Customers starting a service agreement at a new location will not immediately be eligible for Option S. The cap for Option S enrollment will be considered reached when the megawatt value hits 50 megawatts per rate schedule, separately for B19 and B20. Current enrollment can be tracked on PG&E's website. One of the most notable aspects of the rate structure of option S is that it includes daily demand charges. This is the first time daily demand charges have been implemented in California. With that said, daily demand charges are one of the new, more complex rate structures that we will be incorporating within the upgrade to Energy Toolbase's platform soon to come. Under option S, during the summer season of June through September, daily demand charges are assessed during both the on-peak and part-peak time periods. The remaining months of the year have a daily demand charge assessed during just the on-peak hours. In addition to per-day demand charges, option S includes a standard monthly maximum demand charge year-round. This demand charge is not subject to time restrictions. The summer season, however, includes an additional max demand charge that is applied to the max demand occurrence during all hours outside of 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. When looking at the energy charges, the most obvious difference between the standard B19 or B20 rates and their option S versions is the price differentials among time of use periods. During the summer season, the on-peak energy charge is more than double the part-peak charge and more than triple the off-peak charge. Like previously mentioned, price differentials are one of the main rate structure aspects focused on when designing a rate intended for just storage customers. On this last slide, you will see a side-by-side comparison of legacy rate A6 to the new rate B6. B6 is applicable to small commercial customers with less than 75 kilowatts of demand. Like all B rates, B6 includes a peak period from 4 to 9 p.m. every day year-round. As you can see within the chart, B6 includes a winter peak charge, but not a summer part peak charge. Keep in mind, as previously mentioned, that the seasons of these two rates differ, in which the summer season of B6 is 2 months shorter, only including the months of June through September. And with that, I would like to go ahead and pass the mic to Matt, who will dive a bit deeper into the rate comparison, showing exactly how the changes that come along with this mandatory rate transition will impact solar proposals. Matt?
All right. Thank you so much, Erin. Yeah, that was a great explanation of those major rate changes for PG&E, and thank you so much for all the research that went into that. So hello, everybody, and thanks for joining today. My name is Matt Simo. I'm going to be taking a bit more specific look into the value opportunity, moving from the historical A6 rate into the new B6, as well as looking at some economic options here from B20 to the option R. So I've built out a few test cases to show the financial impacts of these rate switches as it applies to a pretty broad spectrum of PG&E customers. And a lot of the projects that we do kind of put our eyes on out there in California have a lot to do with, you know, transitioning from A6 to B6 and working with those B19, B20 rates. Like I said, many of our customers end up using those. So as the previous years have kind of went by, a lot of developers really knew the A6 like the back of their hand. Had phenomenal potential to both PV and energy storage opportunities. And as we move along the PG&E roadmap, the B6 rate is going to be the go-to starting rate, as Erin had mentioned, pretty much from here on out. And as opposed to the A6, there are going to be some value change, right? And also with the B20 to the B20 option R. This change of value is mostly due to the change in pricing across the 2U periods, from A6 to B6 and the B20 to the option R, as well as the actual time shift in the on and off time periods from A6 to B6. So I'm going to go ahead and move through some of these test cases and just quickly review what we kind of built out here. So looking at the A6, just really showing you that all these test cases I built were effectively identical, and the only things that are different here are going to be the rates. So the load profile that we kind of constructed for the A6 B6 test case here is a very typical commercial opportunity. Definitely falls in line with the type of usage and consumption pattern that a customer on an A6 or B6 would be on. Here we can see we have a power and energy influx here about 6:30 in the morning, carries pretty much throughout the day, and then drops down later at night. Pretty typical, you know, commercial sort of load profile. We see that all through the year, all these months, and then on the weekends we can see that drop. Okay. So that's kind of what we're working with. And for you guys that are listening, if you're not current ETB users, I just want to quickly show you where you can dive in to the platform and get a lot of this information that Aaron had spoke about, just as a refresher when you're working on projects. So here in the energy profile, we're going to go to show rate, schedule, details. First thing I want to look at is our seasons and time periods. So if we just scroll down here, we're looking at the A6, and this is just a quick review before we dive into the test cases, that originally the A6, we had our on peak from noon to 6, part peak and off peak were scattered throughout the early morning and later evening into the night, okay? So we had originally a really nice kind of spread here where we're gonna be generating a lot of solar, and on peak falls directly in line with that generation. It's very, very valuable in terms of the production of that system. And if we look at the energy charges, okay, from that noon to 6 p.m. on peak for an A6, we're getting 60 cents per kilowatt hour. That's the retail cost of energy. So as we directly offsetted that, we're going to be getting 60 cents. And if we export to the grid, we're going to be getting basically 60 cents, minus our non-bypassable charges per the NEM 2.0 metering configuration in California. But even part peak and off peak, super valuable. So as we transition into the B6, as Aaron had mentioned, we're going to see some changes. So quickly reviewing the B6, and again, the exact same seasonal load profile, right? Nothing has changed here. And in the rate schedule details, right, that shift is now 4 to 9. Okay, so the most expensive time period is now later in the day. And this absolutely has a payback period impact and feasibility impact on some of these projects. They're still very attractive, right? But just something to keep in mind. And again, looking into the price structure, even down to the summer, what was once 60 cents is now dropped down to 35 cents, and then the off peak down to 23. So not only is the time shift there, but we have a price drop. So as we get into test case number 1, this is just an A6, right? So in the previous years, if you're going to be on an A6 rate, the things that we like to really focus on in the project analytics are these 2 metrics, and I'm going to be talking about these a lot. And it's going to be our blended cost and our blended savings. So before we get into it, the blended cost, the way that we derive this number, think about it as like an average cost of energy being consumed. We're going to take the total electric bill from our customer pre-solar, and we're going to divide that number by the total kilowatt hours consumed. Okay, so that's your all-in blended cost of electricity. And then for PV savings, we're going to take the total dollar amount savings from that project and divide that number by the PV generation kWh of that system. And this effectively tells us the value that every kilowatt hour generated holds. So if we're looking at an A6, like we said before, this is a very, very valuable rate. And I built this test case around the 32.3 kilowatt system, just over $3 a watt, right? 100 grand. So pretty realistic numbers. And our blended cost is 31 cents. So on average, the customer is going to be paying 31 cents per kilowatt hour, pulling in that energy pre-solar. But because of how the TOU periods and the pricing line up just perfectly with our solar generation, we're making more money than it costs. We're generating energy at 35 cents a kilowatt hour, resulting in a 3.1 year payback. And we have very realistic incentives here. We got the ITC, and modeling out of California in the commercial sector, we have state depreciation and federal depreciation. So this is nothing to shake a stick at. This is a phenomenal payback. But all good things must come to an end, and we're going to be moving to the B6, okay? So again, everything's identical with the actual project itself. But let's look at our blended utility cost here, okay? 24.3 cents. So the cost of energy is cheaper. So to the consumer, okay, that's great. You're paying a little bit less in electricity costs. But when we start building solar, right, we all know that solar value is directly proportional to the rate that you're using. So that being said, we see our generation that was at 35 cents per kilowatt hour drop down to 23.7, about 24. So this is mostly going to be due to the shift in that TOU period that Aaron had explained and the value shift. So on this next slide, this is where kind of everything is going to come together on this rate shift. So this one here I actually modeled moving from an A6 to a B6. And I really just want to show visually how these TOU periods kind of end up lining up. So if you can see right down at the bottom, okay? We have two lines. We have the dark blue is going to be our energy cost for an A6, and then the light blue right down here at the very bottom is going to be our B6 energy cost. And what I really want to showcase here is when these are occurring. So if we take a look, this is our part peak for our A6. We're looking at the dark black, so 30.7 cents, okay, falls in line with our solar generation. Moving into the on peak at 60 cents, look at this huge shoulder. Look at all this that our solar has to work with to offset that expensive energy, right? Super valuable. But look down to the B6, right? We just see that shift. So not only is the time of use energy cost very different, but that shift. So we now have our solar generation only has really a couple hours of that on peak offset before we kind of fall off our solar production time and then move into the late night. This definitely could be an opportunity for storage. Kind of moving forward, I've been doing just the PV only sort of test cases here, but looping in storage is absolutely feasible to add storage into the B6. It will bring value. You just kind of have to be a little more conscious of the load profile that you're using, and then how much solar is involved in the project that works directly with the amount of energy storage. So work with your account managers. If you guys have any questions about feasibility of energy storage, especially on a B6, get out to your account managers and we can help you develop the project, make sure everything looks as strong as possible, work with our integration partners, get some acumen controls involved. So just let us know what you need. So this hopefully gives a great visual representation of the major difference moving from that A6 to B6 and why we're going to see a little bit of a drop in value. But even on the B6, right, 4.3-year payback. I mean, still super, super good, right? So still a lot of opportunity there. Now, quickly, we're going to move into the B rates, okay? So that was the A6 to B6, and now we're going to take a look at the B20 to the B20 Option R. Now, as Aaron mentioned, so currently B20 is an upgrade from the original E20, but this is still currently in effect. So you're still going to be modeling B20. It's not going to be a grandfathered thing like the A6. Customers are going to still be eligible for the B20 for new service, but after installing solar, looking to move to the Option R. This is a very common scenario that we see, and I did want to make sure that I touched on this. So looking at the seasonal profile, we have a larger consumption pattern that I loaded in here for more of an industrial scale sort of customer, as that is more typical of what we'd see for customers being on this rate. So we have power being pulled in here, 15-minute increment in upwards of 60 to 80 kilowatts every 15 minutes. But again, right, on the weekends, this kind of drops down. Okay, so very typical of commercial customers. Looking into the rate schedule details, okay? Now on the B20, right, starting off on the B20, our on peak is from 4 to 9. So right off the bat, that's something to be conscious of, okay? So already moving a little bit later into that time period, okay, in the afternoons. On the energy side, okay, we have a decent spread. The larger the quantity of usage by a customer, and we're on these more industrial sort of high usage rates, the cost for that energy does tend to drop. But we're still looking at 13 cents on peak, 10 cents off peak. Into the summer, looking a little bit stronger, right? 15 cents on the on peak. So definitely some opportunity here for maybe some light TOU arbitrage if you're going to throw a battery in here. But the big change here is going to be on the demand. So the trade-off when we move to the Option R is that the energy cost is going to go up moving to the Option R, but the demand cost is going to drop. So as we kind of transition, the actual TOU pricing periods are exactly the same as far as when they fall in line, but it's a value shift. And that's the one thing you should be conscious of. Now, all things aside, the Option R is still a very, very valuable rate, especially when we tie in energy storage. And just taking a look at that price change really quick, and we'll dive into some test cases here. In the winter, right, kind of moves up in cost and the energy up to 15 cents, and then up to 35 cents in the summer, okay? So increase of energy, decrease in that demand. So here's our B20 test case, and really looking at the first things first, right? 146.7 kilowatt system, so much larger scale system, priced at $2.20 a watt, so very realistic for a system that size. And just staying on a B20, right? If we started off on a B20, we're looking at about a 28 cent blended utility cost of energy pulled in from the utility. But looking at our PV savings or generation, we're looking at about 15 cents. And again, this is mostly going to be due not to the shift of when the on and off peak happened, but the value shift, right? So keep in mind, right, blended PV savings is the total electric bill savings divided by our generation, when that does encompass energy and demand savings together. So yes, we have a higher energy cost, but the demand cost is lower, right? So depending on when that happens and the frequency of the energy profile, yeah, we're definitely going to see not quite as strong of a PV savings. But all things aside, right, 4.7-year payback, still phenomenal, okay? Moving into the option R, right? So this is the typical rate switch that we're going to see. Again, the blended cost, pretty much the same, right? Not a big change. The changes in the blended cost is mostly due to the changes of the fixed charges. Basically, the charge and fee just to be on the rate, getting service under that rate is a little different, which will change our blended cost a little bit. But the blended savings, a little bit higher, okay? So this just shows that there is a great opportunity to move to the option R. It's a great solar-friendly rate and absolutely does have some great economic impacts and opportunities for energy storage as well. So moving into the last kind of test case, I'm going to show the B20 to the B20 option R sort of rate scenario. And when you're moving to this rate, this is a kind of a cool thing here is like we see more savings here, right? More blended savings because there is an impact of the rate switch. So don't forget, guys, when you're doing these rate switches, like say B20 to the option R, just the switch by its nature has an impact. So that's sometimes easy to forget, and you just think, oh, well, we're just going to the option R. Here's just what it is. But moving from one to the other will have financial impact. So this is a positive. So this is actually a little bit higher. And just really driving home, just look at the demand visualization here. Let's just kind of expand on a couple days. Let's just start off on the energy. So we can see here at the very bottom, okay, we have our dark blue is our energy cost in B20, the light blue energy cost in the option R. So we can see that the time of use windows are identical, okay, but we do have that shift in cost of energy. The B20 option R, much higher cost of energy, great opportunity for solar if we're going to be directly offsetting that energy cost and exporting to grid. But then looking at the demand cost, okay, we can see that the B20 is a much higher demand cost, right, than the option R. The option R in the yellow is much lower. So it's that kind of trade-off. And this is really what gives these projects a great opportunity for batteries when moving to the option R. We have a really good value to shave that energy difference from the on to off peak periods. So that was my quick test case scenario. I hope that this kind of helped drive home a lot of the points that Aaron had spoken about previously. And again, if you guys have any questions about these, please feel free to chat over any questions you have, email us, set a meeting with your account manager. We're always happy to dive in. And I do have just a couple slides here to do a recap on. And again, these are slides we really just went over, but just as a recap, A6 to B6, we have a price shift as well as a TOU window shift from on to off peak. Those are the two main driving factors to what is going to have the big economic impacts from then moving into a B6 rate. Moving from the B20 to the option R, the TOU windows are identical. We have a big price change, higher cost of energy, lower cost in demand, moving to the option R. And the two main metrics that I've been talking about this whole time, right? Blended cost, which is the total pre-solar electric bill divided by the total consumption in kilowatt hours. And then our blended savings, which was the total savings from that project divided by the total kilowatt hour generation. Okay, so these are important to understand, and especially when you're going to move to model batteries, we give you a really nice blended savings metric for the batteries as well. And finally, my last table here, just kind of a summary of all my blended savings analytics for my test cases. So on an original rate here on a A6, all right, average cost per kilowatt hour consumed, about 31 cents. Okay, moving into the B6, right? About a 23-cent per kilowatt hour generated. So again, with a lower cost of energy, we're gonna have a little bit drop of value for the energy being generated by that solar. On the B20, right, our even with the option R, either one of these, the blended cost is about the same, okay? But moving into production with solar, okay, looking at about 16, 17 cent value of generating that energy with the solar. So again, there's still absolute opportunities here. You can see that the payback periods with realistic pricing and savings and energy profiles fall within 4 years. Still tremendous opportunities for you guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it there and pass it to Tracy. And if you guys have any questions, please go ahead and reach out to us. So Tracy, I'll pass it back.
All right, let me take the screen back from you. Hold on just one second, Matt. And all right. And let me know when you can see my PowerPoint. Can you see it?
Yep, we got you.
Cool. All right. So we had quite a few questions. Matt, please feel free to, Matt and Aaron, please feel free to get in there so we can try to answer them. Let's see. All right. The first one, the first couple I think are directed at Aaron. Can A6 switch to B1 rather than B6? I don't think we can hear you, Aaron. You might be muted.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I can't hear. I don't think we can hear you yet, Aaron.
So I could chime in if Aaron's having a little audio issue here. Yeah, so from, hey,
Oh,
Aaron,
there she is.
there she is. Perfect.
Yeah, we got you.
Gotcha.
Okay, sorry about that. I have no idea what happened. Okay, so the question was, can A1 customers be transferred
A6.
or
Can
A6 to
switch
B1?
to B1? Yeah.
It's really just going to depend on the customer's like load profile and their max demand readings. Each of the rates has an applicability that is based on the customer's demand. So when initially transitioned, the customers will be automatically transitioned to the corresponding B rate. So initially an A6 customer would be transitioned to the B6. However, depending on their demand readings, they may be eligible to then elect service under one of the other B rate options.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. I'm going to throw a couple more at you. We had some questions about CCA customers being transitioned.
Yeah, so we have a lot of CCA utilities in our platform currently, such as Sonoma Clean Power. CCA customers are subject to this transition as well, so we should start seeing those customers being transitioned starting next month too. And as far as rates within our database under those CCA utilities, you will see the B rates already available for use. And just to give a little context on kind of how our team goes about updating those rates, we do try to update the CCA rates each time either PG&E updates or the CCA updates. Unfortunately, we have run into some roadblocks trying to kind of obtain the most current information from the CCAs. They tend to be a little bit behind PG&E or the IOUs in as far as kind of posting their new rates, or they don't always correlate with the effective dates of PG&E. For example, PG&E updated their rates last month, but we're seeing that some CCAs are not planning to change their rates until June of this year. So as far as the rates that we have in Energy Toolbase for those CCAs, if there's any, question as far as whether or not we have the most effective date available, please feel free to reach out to us at the utility rate request at Energy Toolbase email, and we'd be happy to, make sure that we have the most effective rate for you to use for those CCA customers.
Great, thank you. Matt, we had a question about one of the test cases you did for the B20 versus B20R comparison. And was that for a typical commercial building that does not operate 24/7?
So yeah, great question. So that was, yeah, typical commercial customer. I wouldn't say this test case specifically was a 24/7 hour of operation. We did have usage throughout the 24 hours, but primarily it was kind of operate during the day for the business hours. But that kind of brings up a great point because my test cases there are not just universal across the board. Obviously, there are fringe cases. You could have customers that have more late night usage, right? A little bit lower daytime usage, and that would absolutely change what we're offsetting with solar and exporting to grid. That could bring about a little bit more of a battery value opportunity there. So yeah, so there are fringe cases, absolutely. And bring that up, Adam Gerza a few weeks ago did a phenomenal webinar that if your listeners here have not heard this yet, I advise you to go look at it. We did a fantastic analysis on both PV and energy storage, on how they're impacted with these major rates across California. So definitely check that out as well.
Cool, thank you. I am seeing a lot of questions. I'm going to address this about the update that we are putting out to our ETB developer platform. A lot of you are asking specific questions about what's going to be in that update. And we won't address them here, but we really encourage you. Matt and Aaron's emails are on the screen right here. Please send them an email with any questions regarding specific features that you are asking about for the new update. And I know our team is happy to answer those. That's why we give our emails out, so please reach out. A couple of questions for you, Aaron, here. And you've said it, but when are the new B rates going to be available in ETB?
Yep, so with the exception of the B1 ST and option S for B19 and B20, the B rates are currently available in the Energy Toolbase platform. We first added them in as soon as they were implemented in November of 2019. We do update those rates each time PG&E releases an update, which the most recent one, like I previously mentioned, was last month. So you'll currently see the B rates available in our platform with an effective date of January 1st, 2021. And just to address the B1 ST storage rate and the option S storage rate for B19 and B20. So due to kind of current infrastructure limitations, we don't have those options readily available currently in the platform to be used. However, like we mentioned, we are getting ready to release a pretty substantial upgrade to our platform that will allow us to model these more involved or complex rate schedules, especially the ones that include now newly implemented daily demand charges. I don't have an exact time frame, unfortunately, to provide you all with, but we do know that it is, soon to come, and we're all very excited and eager to, release that to you guys. So as soon as that, upgrade does occur to our platform, I'm sure we are going to just automatically add these rate options to our platform, because I know there's a lot of customers that have been eagerly and patiently waiting to model with these new options. So as far as those ones are concerned, we will definitely add them in as soon as we can once our platform is updated with those new capabilities.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. To add on to that, of course, once that update is live, you will all be hearing about it. We will be letting you know. We'll be sending you some reminders, some updates. Yeah, and exactly the day it goes live. And we're just excited as you are about that. There are also questions about other test cases that we could potentially run between different rates. If you are an ETB developer user, your account manager will feel free to run over those case studies with you and look at those in a one-on-one demo with you. That's what they're there for. They are the best of the best, and they will help you through those. So while we aren't going to go through those questions now, our team is always happy to answer them. And if we obviously didn't get to your question today, please reach out to us. Again, emails are on the screen. We like answering questions and helping you guys out. Matt and Aaron, were there any questions that you've seen that you want to answer? We've gotten through a lot. Again, another question just came in. We're sending this presentation out, the recording and the slide deck to you guys after the webinar, so sit tight. Hopefully that will come sooner than later to your inboxes.
Yeah, Tracy, I saw one of the questions asking about how PG&E determines the applicable B rate schedule for existing and new customers, and kind of briefly touched on this already, but just to reiterate, as far as the transition goes, existing customers will be transferred to the B rate that correlates with the rate that they're currently under. For example, if a customer is currently served under rate A6, they're going to automatically be transitioned to B6. In general, though, PG&E primarily looks at a commercial customer's max demand when determining applicability. If it exceeds a certain threshold, which varies per rate, but they look at the customer's demand for 3 consecutive months. And if it exceeds that threshold, then the customer will be transferred to a more suitable rate. And as far as new customers, they're assigned primarily just based on their expected max demand. And then they're monitored the same way that existing customers are as far as determining continued eligibility under that rate.
Cool. Thank you, Aaron. And thank you both for being on today. I know we covered a lot today. When we send out this slide deck, we are going to have the webinar resources, some blogs, some links to PG&E's site on things we talked about today, and also contacts for our team for you to reach out. So if you need anything, you can reach out to us or use these links that we're sending. And if you're an ETB developer user, your account manager can help you out with anything you need. Just email them, give them a call, and they'll be happy to get on with you. If you're not an ETB developer user and you want to come on the platform and see how it is, we are offering a 30-day free trial to everybody who is not a user already who registered for this webinar. That's going to give you an extra 2 weeks from a regular trial, an entire month to explore the tool and work with your account manager to ensure it's a good fit. They'll onboard you, they'll train your whole team and get you guys modeling projects. So we'll include that link again in the slide deck and the follow-up email if you're interested. And you can just put the PG&E webinar in the referral box if you do sign up, and you do remember to do that. But yeah, thank you guys all for joining us. And we hope you have a great day. We hope this was helpful for you. And we're happy to answer any questions. And especially thanks to Aaron and Matt. Thank you both for being on with us today.
Thanks for having us, Tracy.
See ya. Have a good one. Bye.